Great. All right, I'm there. Brilliant. Great to see you all. Thanks for tuning into this video. Yeah, I'm excited for this topic as I am for basically every topic I ever speak about. I'm excited for the whole area, excuse me, the whole area of teen empowerment, education. Yeah, how we can give the absolute best and the most to our young people through the work we do with them, whether we're a parent or an educator. And in this case, yeah, the focus is on essay writing. So, for those of you that know me, I also work with maths, I work with English, but most of all, I'm a coach. So I'm a teen coach, sometimes also coaching older than teens, also parent coaching. So I run a program where, yeah, I support families and especially with an academic leaning to empower and harmonize a relationship with schooling to bring about motivation, self-direction, and responsibility in young adults, and to make home a much happier place and also school a happier place. So, yeah, this particular talk is going to be on essay writing. I'm about to start a new course on essay writing, bringing a group of teens together, and yeah, I'm really psyched about it. This challenge, essays, can be such a bane for young people. It can be so intimidating, so boring as well. So yeah, such an undertaking. And yet, I feel like, as with all of my work, same with the maths, that there is a potential to bring such meaning to it, to really harness what it's originally designed for, what I believe it was originally designed for. It wasn't originally designed just to be like the bane of everyone's existence, parents and teens include alike. It's really a profound challenge, an exercise to express ourselves on paper in this way, to read an essay question in an exam. You have no idea. I mean, you actually do have quite a lot of idea, probably, like what that question might say, especially in an English literature exam. You can pretty much predict, but you also don't know. So then it is that question on the day, or if you're in an English language paper, then the question's completely unexpected for the persuasive writing. So yeah, you get dumped this question, and suddenly, bam, you've got to write, you've got to construct an argument and write a coherent, meaningful piece of writing. At least I think you do. But that's one thing, yeah, definitely, which I'll speak about a bit today as well. It's just how lost we can get with mark schemes and just trying to tick the boxes and jump through the hoops, and just how utterly draining and just worthless that kind of exercise and approach can be. All of learning, if we're not careful, can become a bit like that, where we're just trying to get the flipping grade and just do whatever it takes. But that's a very hard road to go down, when learning is not meaningful, when the process isn't alive and giving like nourishment and fulfillment and growth and genuine learning in the process. Then wow, it's really hard to get through GCSEs like that. Plus, there's quite a cost when it's not brought to life. There's quite a cost there for that young person's sense of purpose and agency, and the meaning of their work in general. They get used to school being, far from ideal, boring, not at all what they want to be doing. And then they can easily end up taking that into a working role. So, we get used to just like, yeah, that's just how it is. Yeah, I don't think so. I don't want that for any young people, to settle into school just being boring and pointless, and for there to just be a wash of negativity and cynicism throughout their time at school. No way. There's so much more that every single young person can get out of this school system. However, whatever we think about the school system, I'm not a school teacher. That kind of tells you everything you probably need to know about my take on the school system too. I'm born to teach, but not in that framework. So yeah. Anyway, essay writing, let's get on with it. Yeah, before we get on with it, the way I work is building relationship with young people. To me, you have to have a relationship in place. You have to get their buy-in. They have to actually want to do it. So yeah, that's where I start. I'm like, okay, what do you want to do? Yeah, like, do you want to, should we work on it? What do you want to work on? How do you want to work on it? That's the coaching part. It's not a determined course. That's what's so awesome about it. I'm going to have this a bunch of teens who all want to work on their English. I've got their buy-in. They like me, I like them. We're just going to go to town on like I'm going to be troubleshooting everything that they want to bring to those calls. What do they think? Like, what do they think is the best way to improve? And of course, I've got the full course there, to go to run alongside their steer. So, you know, getting the student motivated to actually give more to the whole process of essay writing is the starting point, to have them actually up for it. Um, yeah, so that we can then speak about the benefits of immersing themselves in a piece of writing or immersing themselves in a literature text, like a literary text. Not just flashing through it as quickly as possible, doing the bare minimum kind of amount of effort for our essays, doing them as quickly as possible, or as just wanting to get them kind of out of our face and into the teacher's hands. So like, oh, I've done my essay, great. Actually just basically giving ourselves to the task, to the essay, let's say, but same for all work. So, again, the work I do is not just going to be essay writing or just maths, whatever. It's going to be a pervasive approach and massive upgrade to how they relate to their work and themselves, frankly, at the same time as well. So, the essay writing approach that I love to share is also learning how to be bold. How to be bold and fearless with coming up with opinions, coming up with ideas, and stating them. It can be very intimidating, an essay. I know that it really intimidated me, actually. It was one reason probably why I've ended up wanting to master it because it was also not taught to me very clearly when I was at school. And I went to a top private school. So, I don't think, I think often essay writing isn't really very well taught. So, yeah, there's a lot that I feel like I can bring to this space. So, yeah, and it can be also great to bring like a time limit basically to each stage, not to get bogged down in hours and hours and hours. If you have a child who really cares, or who can easily spend hours and hours and hours on an essay, well, that's draining in itself. So it can be great to just move along each stage, just go, okay, that's what I've got, I'm going into the next, those are my ideas. I'm going into like structuring those ideas, then I'm just going to write my introduction, get the first paragraph done, whatever it is. Just like keep going, keep an eye on the time, maybe give yourself an hour and a half to get the whole thing done. And just rather than like endless time and not that focused, maybe, the usual things, distractions, procrastination, phones, social media, whatever, interruptions of concentration or literal interruptions, also taking that into account, just getting it done, immersing, really giving yourself to it for a period of time to just get it done and setting the timer. Pomodoro technique is something that's often talked about. A 20-minute timer, that is, for cooking your pasta in Italy. So the plastic red tomato timer that became a classic, where it's cut in half and you turn it and it times for 20 minutes, for cooking presumably homemade pasta, which takes possibly a bit longer than the stuff that we buy. So yeah, that also focusing, okay, 20 minutes is not going to be long enough to write an essay, but 20 minutes to plan it and write the introduction or something, or 20 minutes, just a 20-minute blast of like, right, I'm just going to go for it for 20 minutes. Something like that can just be also great for essay writing. Yeah, so we want to bring freshness to it. We don't want it to be boring. We want to bring life to it. We want it to be a real, meaningful, like, uh, yeah, is this a worthwhile piece of communication from one person to another? Come out of this mindset of like, this is a GCSE essay where I'm just trying to get marks and that's the game. No, like, let's actually write something that really is a communication from you or from your child to another person. Does it make sense? So many essays don't make sense. Like if we applied the Oxford University approach to essay writing, so I've heard they have like a tutor and two students. And right from week one, the first essay that they do, they come in and they read their essays to each other, the two students, and then it's the job of the tutor and the other student to criticize, like in a supportive way, of course, but like just to say like which bits they thought were valuable and useful, which bits they understood, which bits they didn't understand. Wow. After a few weeks, that really gets people writing something that's actually going to be well received by someone who's reading it. So there isn't this kind of like secret ballot thing where you just give in your essay and then somebody anonymous reads it and then it comes back with a grade. You actually have someone in front of you who's like, what are you talking about? What does that mean? I don't get that bit, or that just sounds a bit off. And you're like, okay, yeah, that is a bit off. Yeah, that doesn't make any sense. And so then you quickly start writing in a way that's actually meaningful and valuable. And of course, when you start doing that, it also becomes a lot more enjoyable, like way more enjoyable to write because you're like, okay, I've got to get my point across. You're really invested in it as a meaningful process. So yeah, you start to make it clearer, make it more understandable, start to respond also to the criticism or the guidance that you've been given by your peer or by your tutor. So yeah, that's also the model we're going to be using in the course, and will always be the model that I'll use with groups, is to really share our writing with each other and just in a safe way. It could be anonymous as well, like where I just read the paragraph and we all look at like what was good and what was not good about that attempt, and then we look at another one, then another one, and we just hone our skills in that way. Yeah, so ultimately we want to end up in a place where we're writing with flair and a passion, a sense of meaningful meaning, and a sense of boldness of like, great, I've got these ideas, I've got some evidence that can back them up, and I'm going to lay it down. I'm going to lay it down like really bold and clear. And that's definitely one of my obsessions. It's just halving the sentence length a lot of the time, weeding out, just getting in there with the machete, so to speak, just cutting out words, editing, even just the editing process of looking at a paragraph and going, okay, that's twice as long as it should be. There's a lot of stuff in there that's hiding the real meaning for me as a reader, making me work a lot harder to get the meaning. No examiner or marker or teacher is going to appreciate having to wade through. I know because I've read a lot of essays and I know what it's like for me. I'm sure it's the same for them. You don't want to have to wade through double the volume to get the stuff that you can still tick off, still according to the mark scheme and whatever. But you don't want to have to work doubly hard for it, and it's a waste of the effort of the student, and it's draining to write like that, and the student knows it as well. So we identify that. We'll definitely identify that in the course. Yeah. Yeah, and just to start in another place, there's no shortcuts for writing literature essays, as in you have to know the books. You've got to have read the books and immersed yourself in the enjoyment of reading the books, to get to that stage where you're like, yeah, I've read it over, I've settled down with it, hopefully a couple of times. That's the best way. Just like in English language, when you get given like a passage, page and a half or a couple of pages to read, it's actually way better to read that passage a couple of times, to spend some time really reading it, really like taking in the meaning, reading it slowly, meaningfully, deeply, and a couple of times before you get into the questions and just flashing through it quickly and then getting into the questions. Because if you go through too quick, you get to the questions and you just don't really you don't really have any of the answers. So you haven't really taken in what's being stated. So all of your judgment and decision making is just a bit sort of strained and off. Same thing with a literature essay. My first message to anyone coming into this English essay writing course is going to be, really, it's going to be a struggle for the rest of the year if you haven't read the book or if you don't know the book. And so, yeah, with Shakespeare, with the poetry or whatever's difficult to understand, you've got to just get down and get into that, like actually wrestle with it a bit. And once you do, there is great reward. There's a great reward to suddenly going, now I understand that scene, or now I understand that poem. Now I feel like, yeah, there's things I could say about that. And you really are like, yeah, I've got opinions now. Before that, you're just bullshitting. you're just bluffing, and that's really uncomfortable. And especially under time pressure in the exam, that's really hard. It's so hard to write a good literature essay just by cobbling together the bare essence of what you need, a bunch of quotes. Not that quotes aren't very important, but you just need to have an actual, it's just meaningless. It's basically a meaningless process. You're trying to write an essay for a grade then. So got to read the book. All right, so the essay writing technique itself, I'm just going to tell you basically a lot of the things that are going to be in this course. It's an expensive course, so you're getting all of this stuff for free. There's a lot of extra value in the course of course, because I'm with the actual teens, I'm a coach, so there's a lot of other discussion around motivation, self-direction, responsibility. There's a relationship connection there. There's a way of just blowing apart the resistance that a lot of students can have in the system, without that personal touch, without that truth being spoken by an authority, me in this case, like a benign authority, that can really get through to them, like why they should bother, what the profound purpose of this whole exercise is, way beyond just getting the grades and pleasing your parents or pleasing your teacher or whatever it is, just getting everyone off your back. Like, what's the actual benefit for the student in the moment? What's the point of really getting stuck into it, voluntarily in your own time, really giving yourself to it rather than just getting it done. So that's my role. That's a big part of my role. But so yeah, anyway, the course, there's a whole load of different things. Over the years, gosh, it's been like 20 years or more of teaching English essay writing technique and maths in various different forms. I mean, tutoring background, but then also in part of coaching programs and group coaching and teaching. But yeah, so one of the things, all of these are really fascinating to me, by the way, these ways that we use our mind, or the ways we're like not managing to step up for a challenge like this, the things that need to be called out. One of them is reading the question. Like, I mean, you'll have heard some of these things before, maybe a lot of these things before, but genuinely, we have to get through to ourselves and to our students, or to our children, the importance of fully taking that question in. And this is obviously not just the case for English, but it's so important for essay writing, of course. If you don't really have the question very close to hand, in mind, if you're not referring back to the question all the time to make sure you're actually responding to it, you're actually answering it, then your essay is going to really suffer because of it. And, reading the question is something I see in maths just all the time, processing errors, going too quick, not really settling with the question, a bit like the example I gave about reading the English language passage. You have to really slow down and take it in, especially under exam pressure, like turn it over, okay, every single word in a single, like maybe 2-line essay question, every single word, you got to take it in and go, okay, am I set to really think up direct answers to this question now? So yeah, it takes having the guts then, like once you've absorbed the question, read the question, it takes guts to really think about your answers, really plan it out, take that time to plan. Now, planning, every student I ever ask about planning, they're like, no, don't do that. So that's the first thing. We got to come up with a sexier word than planning. But it's really where the rubber hits the road. That's the be all and end all of essay writing, is being able, and in this day and age, with concentration spans the way they are and all these different learner types emerging, which is great that we know ourselves better and know how we learn best, and what our strengths and weaknesses are and what our challenges are and whatever, so which is great. But we do seem to be facing a bigger and bigger challenge with students just being able to sit and think and settle, and the pace of modern life, the way we consume entertainment and media and the social media, just the pace of it all, just all of that I've just mentioned affects a student's ability to sit and think. And I think that this is a really necessary skill for, I mean, I'm going to say something outrageous now, but like not just for essay writing, but actually I feel like for survival. I mean, it's quite a long way to go from essay writing to survival, but I mean, for well-being, of course, I'm referring a little bit to like meditation or some kind of practice where we just stop and slow down, settle, where we take stock, we allow ourselves to just be. I have that kind of practice. It's been of profound impact in my life. And it's kind of the space that I want a student to enter into. I know the power of that, that the just the the skill or the habit, the training, the experience of sitting and just meditating, sitting and being for 5 minutes, where the fan of activity, the kind of constant like treadmill, is allowed to just be still for a time, really supports like my capacity to drop into deep focus when I'm working, when I'm also writing, so I write a lot. So yeah, the students we want to practice, we do practice just sitting and thinking, coming up with ideas, knowing that that is the original challenge. That is the be all and end all. If you can think up a great plan in 5 to 10 minutes, of course, you've got to know your material, as in the case of the English literature books, you've got to have read it, you've got to know it, you've got to be excited to talk about it and write about it, you've got to be into it. Got to get into it. I don't care. I basically don't really care about opinions of like, oh, I don't like it or whatever. It's like an avoidance usually, that just get into it. If it's Dickens or if it's Macbeth, just get it. Just it's great writing. Don't be, there's a lot to, and again, I'm not just going to dismiss that with a student. We'd work on that kind of mindset around the resistance, the opinion, and just, yeah. Anyway, yeah. Um, I'm lost. I'm lost in just yeah, being able to sit and think basically and come up with ideas. But once you've done that, once you have, yeah, going back now. So once you have five good ideas, genuinely good ideas in response to the question, having fully taken in the exact meaning of the question, like really giving the question what it's asking for, answering it directly with 5 points that you can back up with evidence. That's the kicker. You're going to make a point, you've got to be able to prove it in literature and prove it just in any case, even just in a persuasive piece of writing. If you're going to make a point, then great, give an example, like bring it to life. So still you need evidence for that kind of writing, I would say, to make it meaningful and interesting, to make it much easier to write as well. Like it's very hard to write an essay without evidence. So like the evidence just gives you like a perfect focus to riff on in each paragraph. So you need something in the middle there that's like anyone can understand. Like, oh yeah, she said this, he said that, or whatever. Or like, for example, this and some real life example in a persuasive piece of writing. Yeah, once you have that plan, wow, it's so easy to write. Like everyone's like, oh, okay, I kind of know what I'm doing now. Like, okay, we can work on the paragraphing, we can work on the writing style, we can work on loads of other things, but really, the hardest part, so to speak, is done then. You're like, okay, I've got my points, I know I can turn them, especially with the course or with some training. I know I can easily turn them into 5 paragraphs. I've got an introduction, conclusion. I'm done, or like 7 paragraphs or 3 paragraphs, whatever it is. So yeah. Another thing, straight into the next point, is just another thing I'm really passionate about is and maybe I mentioned it already, it's just the no bullshitting thing. Um, every student, I want to say, but maybe I'll just say so many students really just aren't being real in their writing. There is a game playing thing going on here. It's a mark scheme thing. They don't really have the confidence, I think, to genuinely put down their points and to put that in very bold, clear argument. So yes, having confidence, having the trust and faith in the validity of your own ideas and the boldness to state them like nakedly, really just like bam, an eight word starter sentence, just like da 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 this full stop. Not just a three-liner that's just like what, a really, the character is this Like at this stage in the play, the character is this, about one word, like just, and that's it. That's the argument. That's the whole paragraph you're opening up. So yeah, the confidence, trust, and faith to do that, and just not to be playing this game of like, I'm just gonna create this kind of smoke screen and hope that the examiner comes out with a good grade for me at the end of it. It's a terrible way to write. It's a really draining, pointless, meaningless exercise, and it's not going to get you a good grade either. It's draining for the examiner or the marker to read. I can tell you from first-hand experience. So, yeah, we also work a little bit on generating more ideas, how to generate more ideas. It's not easy. This stuff needs to be taught. And I think this is the stuff that often isn't taught, is really how to, when you start to develop the skill to settle and to think, to then know how to proliferate your ideas, how to come from one or two ideas that might drop right into your lap into like, okay, well, what else is there out there? So there's a number of different ways of doing that I've evolved over the years. A lot of this has just come from practice, teaching students, working with students, listening to them, and problem solving together. But yeah, you can bounce off the ideas you've already got and look for kind of opposites, look for like different in literatures, in the case of literature, look for like other scenes, other characters, like what are they doing in the context of this question? Like who else is there, or like what else is there out there? How can I, yeah, offset these points, or like what else could sit alongside these points that would be different, that would broaden it out. So spreading the net wide, looking wide for like breadth of points, because yeah, with persuasive writing, definitely you want to have like a whole range, not just a load of points that are kind of samey. Yeah, also to balance out like pros and cons of the argument, to have a balanced argument. It's good to do that. And then with the plan, yeah, one of my fixations is the student being able to write that plan in less than 20 words. We want the key words. You want to think in those first 5 to 10 minutes, like, what's my point? What's my point in one word? Maybe two, maybe three. But like, what's the word I'm actually going to use in that first sentence in the paragraph to open up the argument of that paragraph? What's my point? Again, in response to the question, you read the question and then bam, there's just a straight point answer. And then the rest of the paragraph is an invitation to give evidence and to justify it. It's like a challenge rather, to then justify that point, to prove it. Once you've got the points, like the key words, to prioritize them. Prioritize them then is the next stage of like, what's the best flow? Go with the strongest ones first, just in case in an exam you don't get round to the other ones. Or through the course of writing, sometimes you might ditch some of the other ones. You might be like, actually, whoa, that's another great point. Put something else in, but probably you're not going to ditch your best points. So yeah, start with the best ones. Then yeah, intros, of course, like learning how to write intros is something that we need to learn. It's basically a summary of all your points without the evidence. So that's again like something that we're practicing in the course. Just writing an introduction that goes through all the points, using all those keywords or synonyms of those keywords, but no evidence at all. None of the quotes or none of the examples you might be using. Yeah, and actually, before we go into this, I can see I've missed with each point, with each of the 5 points, once you've got the keywords, of course, you've got to challenge those keywords and go, okay, what is my evidence? How can I justify that point? Like, what's my evidence from a literature, from a book or from a play? What line or what can I put in there to prove that I'm right? Or from poetry or from whatever? Like, how can I prove this? Or how can I illustrate that in the case of persuasive writing? So you've got to, and if you can't, then probably you've got to ditch the point. Like, you've got to spend a bit of time going like, can I actually justify that? Or is that just some opinion I've come up with that's maybe not like actually there in the text? So yeah. Yeah, then we have a lot of fun with paragraphing. Usually I use Google Docs and colors. So each line, like, you can, I'm a creative. So I was a songwriter for a long time. I love I love writing that throws all the rules out. So I'm not big on like spelling, like punctuation, grammar, traditional. That's not really what I teach so much. It's more just like getting students to even want to write essays in the first place, motivating them, reaching them as people, empowering the whole experience around essay writing, and of course, getting them excited about it makes them write better essays and show up for it more. But yeah, with the paragraphing, there is like a framework that we can kind of rely on, that each paragraph sort of, luckily you can learn a technique where you make a point and then you link to a quote and then you analyze the quote or the evidence in as much detail as you can. And then the final sentence of the paragraph, you link back to the question. That's it. Then you go again. So, we play with that framework using different colors, and the students can really see, okay, where's I'm meant to be doing this there. Like, what do I say about this particular quote? How do I build up to like making that quote, giving the scene or the context for it? And then afterwards, how do I analyze that quote? Which words am I going to pick out? What are the techniques being used, the literary techniques, maybe giving some context, if that's rewarded in the mark scheme, some context, meaning like historical context. So whatever needs to go in there, just building it like that and going, okay, that's what a good paragraph could look like. But luckily, writing is wild, right? Writing, if you can start to develop a sense where you can really throw the rule book out as well, and put in multiple quotes or whatever it might be, to play with it once you've got some experience. So yeah. Yeah, and the first line, that first line is so important from each paragraph. The first line has to be so clear. I really like it when it's short. I love it when the key word is just before the full stop. When the sentence ends with like bam. Like I wish I should have an example here for that, but to make it a bit more meaningful for you. But yeah, that keyword, if you find out that a character is uh, yeah, a particular characteristic like disloyal or something, that can be a great end to a sentence. The certain character, we can see that ultimately at this stage of the play, she becomes disloyal, full stop. It's just like, bam, that point is made so powerfully. It's not buried in the word disloyal, isn't in there with a bunch of other ones in the middle of the sentence. It's full stop at the end of it. It's so impactful. So again, students really could do with learning that they should write. That's part of being bold. It's just going, I've got one word, one word, and that unlocks the whole argument. Then my whole paragraph is about that character being disloyal. I'm going to prove their disloyalty to whoever else. Yeah. Yeah, the first line, the last line is always linked to the question, always having evidence. Yeah, exactly. Okay, the machete editing. I'm just maybe I've said like most of what I wanted to say in this live, but yeah, let me just quickly halving sentence length. I talked about simplifying your phrasing. Yeah, that comes very quickly when you start reading out your essays or sharing them with others, and taking a bit of coaching or tutoring around that as well, just to be yeah, just being really picking and choosing every single word with real intent, not just blabbering on. Um, yeah, and the conclusion, yeah, a bit like the intro in some ways. Once you've done those 5 paragraphs, you practice them. The conclusion is also like a wrap up of all of your points. It's a kind of post-argument equivalent of the introduction, I would say. No quotes in there or further evidence. It's just to like go like a recap. It's like a recap. Using different words is nice as well if it's not the same keywords that you're relying on in the introduction and in the points in the paragraphs. Just as much diverse vocabulary as possible is great. But yeah, perfect. Okay, I think that's it. There's lots of different ways I love to do this, like to also draw on like popular media, like Friends or The Simpsons or something, or whatever it might be, to kind of practice with like character analysis and brainstorming for ideas, learning how to make a plan to write a whole, and just planning, not even writing the essay is a great thing to do. Just like, okay, here's another essay question, plan something, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. And then here's another one, plan something, and then we can analyze the plan. Um, like I say, I feel like that's really the be all and end all for a lot of students. So hope that's been helpful. It's been fun to just go through it. I'm just kind of brainstorming it get ready for this course starting next week. So of course, let me know if you watch this straight away, if you want to join the course, and you can be in touch with us in any case. There will always be groups that I'm working with on essay writing technique and coaching them generally. Like I say, it's much more than just essay writing technique with me, much more than maths. It's a full relationship and empowerment of schooling, of learning, of life. So yeah, we've got a lot of freedom to play with in the Young Fire Academy that schools generally don't have. So that's just one way in which we've set ourselves up to get different results.